Hey guys.
Hey, Zach.
Hey, Zach, how you
My
doing?
voice is changing because I'm going through puberty or something. I don't know what happened.
I'm sure it's been a long day of talking. Are
No, it's
are we
good.
all set here?
What's that? Yeah, let's go.
All right, folks. Today we are joined by a very awesome guest. I honestly think we've said this man's name more than any other name in our podcast. It helps that his name was in the title of his last film. You know him as the director of films such as 300, Man of Steel, and Army of the Dead. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Zack Snyder. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I am so stoked to talk to you. Congrats on your new film, Army of the Dead. I had such a blast. And I think that's the point of film these days, especially with the year that we just went through. And it also felt like the logical next step in zombie films in terms of both what the zombies can do and the world building outside of it. I love the idea of society carrying on while there's a zombie outbreak. So let's start with the cast. Wide ranging cast. Did you build the characters on actors you wanted to work with or vice versa? And how did you go about crafting this sprawling cast?
It was a bit of a vice versa, I would say. But each of them sort of got customized a little bit based on kind of who we then got. I always imagined the Scott character, Dave Bautista's character, as being a little bit older than Dave, but Dave totally works as the dad in this movie. I don't think you don't bat an eye. I think originally he was named Scott after Scott Glenn.
Scott Glenn.
That was
Can't go wrong there.
No, Scott Glenn. Great call.
Yeah. So but the story's been around for a while. But yeah, and Scott's good friend and a great inspiration. But I've been talking with Dave. We've been trying to look for a project, and this came along, and I was like, wait a minute, Dave is perfect for this. Also because there's a little bit of he's this big, physically capable, like a soldier, warrior, whatever, but also, really vulnerable and having to be really, kind of opens himself up to us. And I think that was a thing that I thought that Dave would do a great job at, and he did really, really, really good.
Well, that's what's great about Dave is I think that he obviously could do the drama as well as the set pieces. So I want to talk about the set pieces. What are the different challenges and or rewards of filming a zombie set piece versus filming a superhero set piece?
I think with what we were able to accomplish with, say, even casino, we call it Casino Battle, let's say, for an example, where there's a scene where the zombies make it onto the casino floor and there's a big fight. They're just trying to make it to the elevator, cross the, you get to really see, as opposed to, like, say, doing a superhero version of that where some, Superman's got to fight his way through, whatever it is to get to another place. It would be pretty much pieced together through visual effects and slowly evolve over the course of, whatever the year of post. But in the case of this, and the fun of it is you really get to see, the zombies, the fighting's happening right there. And it's really really rewarding and fun to really shoot them, physically in the space, physically fighting. I do love that, doing that as well, like to do the actual fights right on camera. And so it's a slightly different process, but same basic outcome. The hope is anyway for the drama and the action to all kind of come together in the set piece sequences.
So Army of the Dead is this big budget, ambitious original movie for Netflix. I'm wondering, is streaming the kind of only viable home for these types of original home run swings that aren't part of pre-existing franchises and known IP these days?
It's an interesting way to think about it. I don't know that I've only, this is my first movie I've done with Netflix. I haven't analyzed the marketplace in a super deep dive, other than to say that it is true that Netflix and in regard to Army, that this is original IP. It's a big budget, but not a huge budget. It's not a superhero tentpole budget, but the world building and sort of the specific like entering of another world is akin to that kind of summer blockbuster creation. I purposely tried to give it, even through the photography, a very sort of intimate and kind of really kind of organic feeling, because I knew we were going to be dealing with these huge elements. And I thought if the movie was doubly slick, that you can lose one, like the audience has to keep buying all these different zombie tropes and different cinematic tropes that I kind of purposely keep slinging in. And I wanted to make sure that the photography kept you hooked, that the camera and the way we were using the camera was almost you're a third person, you're part of the journey. And I felt like that I could keep stacking on the tropes because I kind of had you along, like you couldn't get away. You were like one of the members of the team. And so that was kind of the why of it. But to get back to this whole notion of, but I did want to create this sort of feeling of a summer blockbuster kind of tentpole, because I felt like it was
job done.
Thanks. It's a cool, also for me, and it just in my partnership with Netflix, I just feel like that this is a cool thing to start doing, sort of in a Netflix format, where Netflix is a place to go for these kind of blockbuster movies. That's what I kind of want to. That language, I think, is really cool and a fun thing to play. Even now, and even Netflix, in response to the movie, has said like, okay, well, let's put it in theaters as well. That's a cool. Like,
congrats on that. Yeah, congrats on that. The news really just came out, I think today, or was that last night?
Yesterday.
Time all blends at this point.
So it's a really cool development, and I just thought that was it's kind of this full circle kind of affair, which I think is cool.
Well, you bring up a great point about being full circle. That leads me to what I want to ask next, Zach. Was there a sense of catharsis and sort of returning to the genre that started it all for you? And did you make that choice on purpose?
Yeah, I mean, not 100% on. I didn't think about it in this sort of global way, or sort of, with perspective on my career or my sort of emotional place. It was really, it was an idea.
It's been a busy few years, then, because that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, I guess it just felt like a thing that I was interested in, and I had a lot of enthusiasm for. So, in talking to Netflix and them saying, "Hey, we think this is a cool idea," I was like, "It is a cool idea. Let's do it. Like, when do you want to do it?" And they're like, "Right now." And I was like, "Right now, okay, fine." And then Shay and I just wrote the script really quick. We rewrote it from zero. We had a script, but I didn't even look at it. We started again from page one and just rewrote the whole thing. And I just really got energized by the process. And then that also led to sort of my desire to like shoot the movie myself and, be, and operate and just really kind of connect sort of with cinema again, I guess, if you will. Even making Justice League, your distance from the camera is pretty great. Like the way when you make a giant blockbuster superhero movie, the cast is like somewhere over there, so for me it was really nice to be like, to make this sort of organic movie.
So even for you, despite the fact that it's Netflix and zombies and Vegas and this big affair, for you it felt small scale.
It was like, it felt really small and intimate, and like a real, like, kind of
Gotcha.
organic, if you will, experience. And I think that was fun because yeah, even though it does feel like a giant world. And actually, we made it where I was like, okay, well, we know we have this huge element of zombies. We have this huge element of like destroyed Vegas, which is these two worlds don't exist. You can't just go film those things, right? So we knew we were going to have to manufacture all of that, which is the thing I'm comfortable with. It's not weird, but it does take resources to do that,
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
so I just wanted to make sure the sort of crew and the way we shot it, we kept, control over that, kept it small and intimate, and
Gotcha.
you know.
So I want to now swing over to Man of Steel, which is a film that I love. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I think I love it that more than most, to be honest. I would put it in my top 20, even though I'm a Batman guy. I love this movie. And I actually have this theory. Feel free to confirm or deny that you were originally hired to do what Nolan did for Batman for Superman. But what I want to ask is, if you kept going with the Superman focused film series, what villain would you have liked to do next? And rather, what about the challenges that they posed to Supes did you find appealing?
We talked about a Brainiac movie. Yeah, and I mean, but I do think that there was the Kryptonians that are in the Phantom Zone are probably still around. And there was always a possibility for their return. Fiora and whoever's left. So that always was the thing that was out there that we talked about as a possible, sequel, follow up. So there's a lot of that. And I just always think that like it's best to give Superman these kind of extraterrestrial challenges, because I think that you got to be careful with I mean, other than Lex, and of course you'd have to continue with Lex because Lex is his real nemesis. But like, I think you really have to look outside of the Earth for challenges for him because of how powerful he is.
So just to build off that quickly, J.J. Abrams is producing a new film. The CW show is running. It seems to be very hard to get a ton of audiences to agree on what Superman should be in a modern context. So I'm just curious, in future sequels, what would you have done to kind of exemplify how and the ways he would work in this contemporary landscape? What directions would you have taken him beyond these otherworldly forces?
I don't know that I would have taken him in a different direction than the direction I was taking him. I think Henry is a great Superman. I had a great time working with Henry, and I think that also we endeavored to make him in Man of Steel sort of a modern Superman, in that he is in his relationship to society and or the modern world. We did that math, and like what would happen if and it's kind of what the movie's about, frankly. Man of Steel is about like, what if we really had a Superman? What would it mean?
It comes across.
I think time is going to be very kind to that film, Zach. I think that the human parts are the best parts about it, which is an achievement unto itself. But for you, as a film fan, as a comic book fan, was there ever a specific moment that you think of where you said to yourself, "Holy shit, I'm directing a Superman film"? And if so, what was that moment?
Probably Smallville Battle, which we shot pretty early in the schedule, and Henry was just standing out on the streets of Smallville in his Superman outfit, kind of walking down the street, and I was
There's
just
that
looking on the
iconic
thing.
shot of him in front of the flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, geez, like, okay.
I don't
All
blame
right.
you, dude. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
This is cool. Yeah, but it was cool. And those moments are short lived because, like, Henry would walk up to me and be like, it's 100 degrees out here. And he'd like pull his sleeve and sweat would roll out of his suit, like pour out. And I was like, oh, geez, like that's crazy. And
his sacrifice doesn't go unnoticed, though. I like to say it's the Man of Steel is the closest we'll ever get to a good live action Dragon Ball Z movie because of how epic and unbelievable the actual choreography of those fight scenes were.
Yeah.
Especially the Smallville scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, I love that film, so thank you for that. I want to now switch to sort of the reason why I'm in this space to begin with, and that is Batman. I've got a tiny little Batman tattoo.
Oh, yeah,
here.
that's pretty cool.
As you can see, yeah, this is Gotham and whatnot. So I want to ask you, because this is where I really nerd out, man. What is the most misunderstood aspect of Batman to you, and how did you try to explore that?
I guess for me, there's a couple like sort of philosophical approaches you could take to Batman, and Monk Warrior was not the way I went.
That's the light way of putting it. Yeah.
And I just think that, like, I always like the Batman that like fucks to forget, and that is, I don't know, like I like him when he's like when Bruce Wayne is broken, and obviously I like that. He's not, he uses sex and drugs, and not drugs, maybe painkillers and alcohol to.
Those are definitely drugs.
To numb himself. The only time he's really happy, or not happy, but like at ease, is in the bat suit. Like he's being Batman is the only way to dull the pain of what happened to him as a child, and then frankly what happened to him, with pretty much a lot of his loved ones. Apparently anyone who Batman loves, he loses, and I think it's a big problem for him. And I think Justice League really for me is always about Batman like getting a family again, like sort of finding himself among these people that he, in a lot of ways, who's not as afraid to lose because they're gods, like it's like a different,
right.
He could relate to them. He's not afraid to love them, so yeah.
So you bring up a good point about sort of the inherent violence of Batman, and I'm sure you've seen the trailer for the Batman, and you could ask Brandon here. I think of your warehouse Batman fight scene. That's my favorite Batman on film fight scene of all time. So
brings it up at least once every podcast.
That's cool.
Unprompted.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, so what I want to ask you is, including your Batman and the sort of new version that we're getting, what do you think explains, if at all, the growing acceptance and or embrace of Batman's inherent violence? Is it a societal thing? Can you peg that at all?
I mean, look, the truth is that if you're going to come up, the rubber hits the road when you start to analyze the practicality of Batman apprehending the bad guy and or confronting what we would consider the villain without a violent conflict with inside of that mythological confrontation. I don't think there's a way to well, I mean, there is, the bad guy could just surrender, and or Batman could decide not to get involved. Those are the two options for us not to have violent resolution of that conflict. And those are fine ways to go. I don't know that it's an interesting movie, but it's certainly a viable option for them to just negotiate their way through it. if Batman says, listen, I would love it if you just surrender.
Killed out.
Yeah. Just don't do that bad stuff anymore. And then you surrender. And then that's the end of the movie.
I'm sure Deathstroke would be willing to get a beer and talk it over with
that's
him.
A viable, Deathstroke just lays down his arms and they both agree that you're right. It was a big misunderstanding. Honestly, it's often a big misunderstanding, but but that's mythological as well. But we just let's agree to disagree, but no more violence, and that's fine. That would be amazing. It's not as long of a movie, but it's certainly a possibility. But for me, I think, and I do think of it in very mythological terms, and so for me, the sort of armed conflict, it really is not about the literal vigilante crime solving as it is. Batman is he's a metaphor for the darkest parts of ourselves, and that are endeavoring to return toward the light. And I think that's when he goes up against the Joker or against the Riddler or Catwoman, these are also clearly metaphors. That are they actual criminals? I don't know, but do they represent this sort of psyche, this dark psyche that is chaos or evil or whatever? And does he have to confront it directly? Yes. And so that does often manifest itself in some sort of physical fight. And whether or not that's, the thesis that it's accepted by modern culture, that's another debate. But I'm happy to talk about it. But I just think that we end up with, at least from my point of view, this mythological battle is a battle for our souls, and Batman's on one side and evil's on the other, and they're going to come to blows.
Well, based on what all of you just said, I'm going to sort of tie this all in one nice bow. What do you think our real world could use more of right now? Batman or Superman, and why?
Well, I'm going to say probably Superman, only because Batman, I think on an individual psychological level, we probably need a little more Batman, in the sense that, Batman, the world's a scary place, and Batman is unafraid to go out into the world and sort of confront that darkness. But I do think that the Superman, the reason, and so, just from a purely sort of, confidence and a way of living in uncertain times, Batman represents a proactive approach to the world. But the reason I say Superman is because I believe that Superman, he does have this, his moral code is very it's strong, and he puts it first, and he's willing to sacrifice himself and or his comfort for his loved ones. And I'm not saying Batman wouldn't do that, but Batman is more of a loner, in that way.
Well, Zach, that's going to do it for us. I thank you for your time, sir. I am an immense fan of yours, so this has been a huge thrill of mine. I am rooting for you deeply in everything you do going forward. Everybody make sure to go out and check out Army of the Dead in theaters on Friday. What is that? May 14th, right? And then Netflix on the 21st?
On the 21st on Netflix.
Correct.
So you can watch it both times. It's fine. Go to the theater, and then you want to check it out, because there's a lot of Easter eggs. We're going to have to talk about this for months.
Do you have one that you could give us right now to keep out?
I think the thing to look for, and it's not really an Easter egg as much as it's a layer, and that is you'll notice that some of the zombies, there's a particular something going on with some of the zombies. And if you look closely, it's worth a deep dive, I think.
All right, we need to rewatch.
I can't wait.
You need to rewatch.
Thank you again,
Because
sir.
there's, yeah.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
you. Take care, Zach.
Thank you.